Reborn on the night noble consort miscarried. Li Yue, just like in my past life, disguised himself as a guard and poured his heart out to me. He asked,
There is someone I cannot love, yet I cannot bear to hate her. What should I do with her?
In my past life, I truly thought he was an enraptured, lowly guard secretly in love with an imperial concubine. I advised him to hide his love, don't let anyone see through it, and just treat her well in secret. The emperor agreed completely. He made a grand show of appointing me as an attendant, promoting me 3 ranks at once, turning me into a living target for the entire harem, a shield for the woman he truly loved. For 7 years, I suffered 6 miscarriages. The prince I nearly died giving birth to, carried away to the noble consort's palace. Therefore, in this lifetime, I told him, Guard Li, life is so fleeting. Naturally, you should care for her openly and uprightly. Li Yue fell into deep thought.
To care for her openly and uprightly.
I stood beside him, holding a bright lantern, as the faint scent of ambergris drifted around my nose, revealing his noble status as the son of heaven. In fact, the emperor's disguise was not that convincing. He had merely put on a guard's uniform, and stood alone by the exotic rocks and clear spring in the imperial garden. Any seasoned palace servant would have noticed something was amiss. Yet in my past life I had only entered the palace 3 months prior, assigned to sweep the imperial garden, completely inexperienced. I foolishly believed he was just a guard secretly in love with an imperial concubine. I racked my brains to comfort him, and devised plans for his sake, until I was titled first-class attendant. Lying upon the dragon bed, facing my terrified gaze, he smiled coldly.
Fuyu, didn't you say you'd be our greatest confidante and help us all your life?
My eyes closed slightly, my stomach subconsciously nodding, even feeling a wave of nausea. Yet in the end, I forced myself to stay still, silently waiting for the emperor to finish deliberating. This was a habit I developed later in my past life. He did not love me, yet he needed me by his side, within his sight. The emperor did not keep me waiting long. He had made his decision.
You make a good point. A true man stands proud in this world. How could he hide his favor for the woman he loves? What kind of man would that be?
Digging my fingernails into my palms, I forced a faint smile. It is good that you have figured it out. I must work tomorrow, so I shall take my leave.
Hold on.
The emperor called me back. His gaze swept over my face and lingered for a long moment. Then he asked quite casually,
We have known each other for so long, and it is rare to get along so well, yet you have never told me your name.
I lowered my head and replied, Queer. The emperor chuckled.
Which palace do you serve in? Has your master not bestowed a proper name upon you?
The answer to that riddle I will tell you next time we meet. The emperor did not take offense at my presumption. Instead, he let out an amused laugh at the novelty.
Next time it is, then. Until we meet again. Queer.
He turned and walked away, the scent of ambergris completely dissipating into the evening breeze. I watched his retreating figure drift further away, before vanishing into the darkness of the night. In my previous life, it was just like this, even after I had suffered 6 miscarriages, and begged him in tears to stop summoning me to his bed, and not to make me bear children anymore. He had merely left me with a heartless back, along with cold, callous words he had said.
Fuyu, the noble consort is a princess of the fallen dynasty. We will never allow her to bear our imperial offspring. Only you can bear them in her stead.
I gripped the lantern tightly, its wooden handle leaving deep red marks in my palm. I let out a long breath. There won't be another encounter. In this life, all he knows is that I am a maid who appeared in the imperial garden at night, with thousands of beauties in the palace. There are countless maids named Quiar. He will never find me, and I will never see him again. I will never enter his bedchamber again, nor will I ever be anyone's shield again. In a month, it will be the Empress Dowager's birthday. He will then select 30 maids to go to the mountains for 3 years of spiritual retreat on his behalf. I must seize this golden opportunity to escape. Life in the mountains is harsh, not to mention eating vegetarian all year round. One must haul water and do farm work. It is far more grueling than life in the palace. The masters are unwilling to go, so they make their servants take their place. In my past life, several maids used every trick in the book to get their names crossed off the roster. As a result, right before the departure, the roster was altered in complete chaos. I quietly made a plan in my mind. The Empress Dowager's head eunuch loves money. I'll slip him some silver to grease the wheels. Right now, everyone is throwing money at him, just to avoid going. If I do the opposite, my name will surely be put on the list. The towering palace walls cast long shadows upon the ground. The moonlight spilling over the long flight of steps carried a touch of chill. I stayed outside for too long that night, caught a chill, and gradually developed a fever after returning to my room. At first, I was burning up terribly, but then felt a chill throughout my body. Between the heat and the cold, I vaguely heard someone calling Fuyu, that name. In the days to come, only the emperor would call me that. Others called me mistress, my lady, or consort Chen. Only the emperor. Whether I was a first-class female attendant, noble lady, consort, or a deposed consort, he would never address me by my imperial rank like the others did, always keeping the name Fuyu on his lips. Fuyu, Fuyu. Wake up quickly. When I opened my eyes, I saw Baoyue reaching out her hand. She was a maid sharing the same room with me, having entered 2 years earlier than I did, and had helped me considerably in recent months. I squeezed her hand. Sister Yue, I'm afraid I can't go on duty. Please cover for me for these 3 to 5 days. I will share half of my monthly allowance with you. She agreed. Then, she brought up some news. To comfort the noble consort after her miscarriage, the emperor plans to replace all the flowers in the imperial garden with the peonies she favors. Work in the garden would be grueling over the next few days, so she urged me to return as soon as my fever broke.
You might truly be sick, but while others work and you hide away, they'll think you're slacking off. If they report you to the eunuch, then you'll suffer for it.
She left after saying that. Lying in bed, I couldn't help thinking. Li Yue truly took it seriously. In my past life, he had also asked what flower I preferred. Back then, I didn't know he deeply loved the noble consort, so I casually said I liked magnolias. The very next day, he ordered magnolia trees to be transplanted. Back then, he was only 25, strikingly handsome, with eyes that shone brightly whenever he looked at me. I thought to myself, judge a person by their actions, not their thoughts. If he treated me well for most of my life, even if only as a shield for his true love, I would still gladly accept it. Yet, that very day, the noble consort summoned me to her palace. Yet she did not see me. Instead, she ordered me to kneel before her palace gates for a full 4 hours. That time, the emperor did not stand up for me. He chuckled at me quite teasingly.
However, Fuyu,
He said,
she is the only woman we love with all our heart.
I closed my eyes and quietly chanted, "Thus have I heard." I used to disbelieve in gods. Yet later, as one flesh and blood after another failed to reach birth, and the once bustling Jiaoxia palace grew increasingly desolate, gilded Buddha statues were placed one after another in the hall. So be it. Word by word, the scriptures are etched in my mind. As long as no one interferes, I will surely head to the mountain on schedule. On the 3rd day of my rest, Baoyue returned to our room after her shift, carrying a box of tea pastries out of the blue. Extremely excited, she said,
Fuyu. This was rewarded by Nanny Xia, who serves the noble consort. She was asking around to see if we know any maids named Queer. There are plenty of choirs in the manor, and I gave her the most names. So Nanny Xia rewarded me with these pastries. Who do you think this Queer is? How did she manage to offend the noble consort?
I did not answer, yet my palms were slick with cold sweat. The maids summoned by the noble consort returned on time, drawing Baoyue's attention away. They are totally confused.
No idea. Noble consort sent people to question us about our names, where we work, and what our shifts are. They held back those from the Western 6 palaces and dismissed the rest of us.
We didn't even catch a glimpse of her ladyship. She is still resting and recuperating, so we only saw other consorts.
I didn't understand why noble consort was searching for choir. Could it be because of the emperor? She detained the servants from the Western 6 palaces. Does this mean she found the servant she was looking for? And I am out of danger. Just as I was pondering this, I heard them say that His Majesty planted a garden full of peonies for the noble consort, and the other consorts also sent people with congratulatory gifts. The young maids gathered together, chattering away, saying they wanted to present gifts to the noble consort.
What if the noble consort takes a liking to it and transfers us to serve in Zhonghui Palace? It is better than sweeping the imperial garden for the rest of our lives. Besides, His Majesty dotes on the noble consort. If we get lucky and catch His Majesty's eye, to be granted the rank of palace maid attendant, we would become half a master then.
Baoyue asked if I wanted to chip in. I thought about it and waved my hand. Enough. I'm short on money. I've only been in the palace for 3 months, and there are many places requiring expenses, while my monthly allowance is only this little. Not only was I short on money, but I also needed to save silver to bribe the head steward in the Empress Dowager's palace. So while Baoyue and the others pooled their money, I quietly took out my embroidery frame to stitch handkerchiefs. This was a rare way for maids to earn silver. Taking fine palace silk and good thread, we made top-grade embroidery and begged the purchasing eunuchs to take them outside to sell. An embroidered piece sold for 10 taels. After various arrangements and commission cuts, a maid could pocket 3 taels. I remembered the chief in charge of purchasing was Eunuch Lu. As luck would have it, he came from my hometown. I spent half a month embroidering 3 handkerchiefs in a row. I handed them over to Eunuch Lu, agreed on his cut with him, and clarified the deadline for receiving the cash. Before taking my leave, the weather was wonderful that day. Walking along the palace path, my mood finally lightened a bit. Since my rebirth, I had been plagued by nightmares. In the dreams, the agonizing pain never ceased, and there was blood all beneath me. During those 7 years, it wasn't that I never fought against them, nor that I never resented Li Yue. Yet those consorts in the inner palace, if they didn't have powerful backgrounds, they had imperial favor. What did I have? All I had was my life. I fought desperately for 7 years, trying every kind of poison, risking half my life to strike back, and became Consort Chen, feared by the entire inner palace. I was utterly exhausted. As I was dying, Li Yue came to see me, separated by a sheer veil. His fingers rested on the curtain and paused, and in the end, he never lifted it. He asked me,
Fuyu, what is it you desire? We can grant you one promise.
"Please let me go. I was just a girl from an ordinary peasant family, with nothing to my name. In the end, I even lost myself. If possible, please let me go." In the distance, a faint chuckle suddenly drifted over. A young man, with a deep and pleasant voice.
Queer, we meet again.
I followed the sound and looked over. It was Liyue. Liyue stood among the jagged rockery by Taiye Lake, looking down at me with a smile, hands behind his back.
Step forward.
In an instant, I was trying to avoid him, but he was a fake imperial guard, while I am a real maidservant. Just half a month left, and I could finally escape. I absolutely could not afford to provoke Liyue at this crucial juncture. Because of this, I obediently stepped forward and stood beneath the rockery. I raised my hands, looking up at him to seize the initiative. "Guard Li, it is not time for shift change yet. Why are you here?" Dusk had just fallen, and Liyue was dressed in casual clothes. Be it the emperor or an imperial guard, he should have had important duties to attend to. Liyue's expression froze for a moment, before he offered a half-true explanation.
I am an imperial bodyguard. My hours are more flexible than those at the divine military gate, so I don't change shifts with them.
After speaking, he reached out to me.
Let me pull you up.
His hands were rough and bony, his palms covered in a thick layer of calluses. The late emperor had disciplined his sons severely, and in his youth, Liyue's studies and horsemanship had put him through immense hardship. A hand like this had once gripped my throat tightly, threatening me.
Fuyu, if we ever catch you scheming against the noble consort, we will never let you off as lightly as today.
I scrutinized the pile of rocks carefully, dodged the emperor's hand, lifted the hem of my dress, and climbed up. Seeing his faint smile as he stared at my shoes, I pulled my legs back immediately once I was steady. The wind blowing against my face carried the moisture of Taiye Lake. I took a deep breath of the breeze. "If your beloved sees this, she will certainly be jealous and refuse to see you." Liyue's lips moved slightly, as if he wanted to tell me something. Yet in the end, he remained silent. He gazed at the green ripples, the lake's surface ruffled by the wind, and slowly settling back into calm, then suddenly spoke.
She is an exceedingly proud woman. She would never be angered by such trivial matters. Yet there is far too much standing between us. Even when I care for her openly and uprightly, she only says she cannot bear it. Every inch I move closer to her, she retreats an inch farther away. Yet I know this is not what she truly desires.
To such random and incoherent words, I somehow understood every bit of it. In my mind, flashed the radiant figure reclining on the rosewood daybed. The noble consort was of the former dynasty's royalty, a flower nurtured with pure gold and silver. After the late emperor breached the imperial city, to show magnanimity, he did not slaughter the fallen royal family. Instead, he demoted them to commoners and placed them under house arrest. This peerless beauty was naturally sent into the late emperor's harem. On the day she entered the palace grounds, Liyue took a decree during his leisure to welcome her in person. As the sedan curtain was lifted, the moment the emperor caught sight of her, his breath was completely taken away. Yet she wiped her tears before him.
"That old emperor is even older than my father. If only it were you, my lord, whom I was to serve. How wonderful that would be."
The emperor remembered those words for many years, all the way until he inherited the late emperor's throne, and inherited her as well. Between them lay national enmity and family grudges, along with the bounds of ethics and morality. He cherished her, yet could not allow himself to indulge her to bear his child. An infant carrying the fallen dynasty's royal bloodline could easily be manipulated by schemers to restore the old regime. He ordered her pregnancy terminated, yet could not stop planning for her future. The new emperor was not her own flesh and blood. He had his own birth mother with ties to foreign clans. Would he respect her as he hoped? Everything he worried about. She understood completely. He stepped forward, and she stepped back. I turned my head to look at the emperor, and spoke in a seemingly casual tone. "Then tell her clearly, and have her tell you clearly too. Everything will be fine once it is talked through." Liyue did not respond. He raised his eyebrows, and suddenly asked me,
By the way, last time you said you would tell me the next time we met, which palace you serve in as a maid. Should you not tell me now?
I lowered my head, my mind racing rapidly, and then replied, "I serve under Eunuch Lu."
At the directorate for setting out.
The emperor pondered for a moment.
The work there is exhausting, and they constantly complain about being short-staffed. Would you like to transfer somewhere with lighter duties?
I was utterly astonished. I only mentioned the Department of Palace Furnishings because when I visited Eunuch Lu earlier, I saw how chaotic it was there. Many servants from other palaces were transferred there to work temporarily, without being officially registered in the roster. Even if the emperor were to search for me, it would be nearly impossible to track me down quickly. Yet it seemed I had shot myself in the foot. Liyue coaxed me gently.
I can have you moved to the front hall. I am an imperial guard, and you will be a maid in the imperial presence. I can help you whenever trouble arises. How about that?
That would never do. The inner palace devours people whole. My current post suits me just fine. The emperor's gaze rested upon my face. He did not press me at all, and even casually untied his jade pendant.
Choir, there is no need to rush to refuse. You may return to your quarters and think it over carefully. Once you've made up your mind, bring this to find me. Even if you decline, you can still use it to ask a favor of me. Just do not lose it carelessly.
Since he had put it that way, refusing further would only arouse suspicion, so I reached out to take the pendant. As I extended my hand, before feeling the coldness of the jade, a searing warmth touched my palm first. The pads of his fingers gently brushed against my palm for a fleeting moment, then pulled away, leaving the jade pendant in my hand. My mind suddenly went blank with shock. Yet, before I could lift my head, the emperor had already walked down the rockery. Gazing at his departing figure, I felt both flustered and irritated, as well as utterly baffled. In this lifetime, I hadn't offered him warm counsel. I even used a fake name to avoid him. He is the son of heaven, with so many beauties in his imperial harem, and his beloved noble consort. Why on earth is he flirting with me like this? I let out a slow sigh, thinking of the Empress Dowager's birthday, thinking of the freedom that would soon come, and walked away from the rockery, and returned to my low room. To ensure my departure from the palace went completely undetected. Whenever I worked from then on, I smeared a layer of charcoal over my face, and drew my eyebrows thick, so no one could recognize me at a glance. Baoyue found it strange, and questioned me about it. I deflected, saying I didn't want a eunuch dragging me off to be his palace partner. She nodded, in understanding. The day before the Empress Dowager's birthday was the time I had agreed to settle accounts with Eunuch Lu. I chose to go in the evening, because we were from the same village. He rounded it up, and for 3 handkerchiefs, handed me 10 taels of silver. He also said my embroidery was popular, telling me to embroider more for him next time. I agreed with a few words, thinking quietly to myself that the tedious years in my past life had unexpectedly honed a life-saving skill for me. No years spent enduring hardship are ever wasted. Just like that, I safely and steadily made it to the Empress Dowager's birthday feast. Just as in my past life, she stated, that 30 maidservants would be chosen to go to the mountain to observe a vegetarian fast for her. I slipped in 10 taels of silver. The chief steward picked his teeth, saying,
"This is fasting for the Empress Dowager lacking spiritual insight. You cannot go."
He was only complaining that my bribe was too meager, hoping to extort a bit more cash. I thought for a moment, and pulled out a handkerchief embroidered all over with scriptures. This servant is devoted to the Buddha, as chief steward may see. He took the handkerchief, straightened his back, praised it briefly, picked up his brush, and wrote in the register,
"Imperial Garden Sweeper Maid Chin.
Fuyu.
It is settled. We depart 3 days from now at dawn. Take the token and withdraw. Arrive here on time."
Holding the token in both hands, before my surging emotions could settle, a piercing announcement rang out.
His Majesty arrives!
I prostrated alongside the crowd of servants, bearing my head extremely low, chanting, "Greetings, Your Majesty." The Emperor's attention did not linger on us, the dense crowd of servants at all. He casually waved his arm, and briskly strode into the Empress Dowager's chambers. In an instant, an argument between mother and son drifted out. The Emperor roared in a fury.
Was Censor Song's impeachment of the Marquis of Xiaoyao in court today, instigated by the Empress Dowager. The noble consort ceased being the late Emperor's concubine long ago. She is our beloved consort.
There is no need for us to intervene in this matter. Your Majesty replanted an entire garden of peonies for that little vixen. Is that not openly proclaiming to all the palace consorts that your heart holds only her? How will others perceive this?
As the curses inside intensified, teacups were violently smashed. The head eunuch suddenly barked fiercely at all the servants, demanding they swallow everything they heard today, deep into their bellies. If he heard a whisper of it elsewhere, he would surely take everyone's heads. He then scolded me, "Your name has been recorded. What are you still standing there for?" I hurriedly answered, "Yes." In a place like the inner palace, sharing imperial favor equally is the rule. For Liu to openly favor only one woman, history would surely brand him as licentious and unprincipled. Yet he happens to harbor grand ambitions, building dams, paving roads, and easing taxes. Enough. I caressed the wooden token in my sleeve pocket. In a short while, I would be able to leave the palace. The affairs within this golden cage will no longer have anything to do with me. 3 days flew by in an instant. I packed my bags early on. During this time, Baoyue asked a few questions. I told her I was going to the mountain to keep a vegetarian diet, and gave her my monthly allowance. She specifically comforted me, saying she was about to go to Zhonghui Palace, and that if I ever faced difficulties, I could seek her out at the noble consort's place. On the morning of departure, I finished sorting out my luggage, and stood punctually outside the gate of Shukong Palace. The Empress Dowager gave us a stern lecture, warning us that after arriving at the mountain, we must never act superior. Just because we came from the imperial palace, we must remain devout, sincere, and steadfast through hardships. Then, The 30 maidservants boarded 3 carriages, one after another. I stepped into the one in the middle. Most of the girls wore sorrowful expressions, while I was wildly overjoyed inside, yet dared not show it on my face. I simply bowed my head and quietly listened to the creaking axles, listening as we left Shukong Palace and left the Hall of Supreme Harmony. We were about to leave the palace. In the distance, a soldier came sprinting over, holding an imperial edict. He shouted loudly that a thief had stolen an imperial treasure, and by the emperor's decree, these 3 carriages were to be intercepted, and the servants escorted to Jiaotai Hall. The carriage halted abruptly. My head spun and my feet grew weak, as if my very destiny had been cut short. Inside Jiaotai Hall, all the maidservants' belongings were surrendered. Several eunuchs searched through them. They were so meticulous that I became completely convinced there was indeed a thief among these servants, until all 29 maids ahead of me were cleared of suspicion and allowed to leave, leaving only me held back. The eunuch did not even rummage through my bundle, but came before me with an ingratiating smile, exceedingly deferential.
Lady Fuyu, please come with us. His Majesty wishes to see you. If we were improper in our duties just now, we beg your ladyship's pardon. Our days ahead together will be long, after all.
My heart thudded violently, so hard it felt like it would burst from my chest. I couldn't recall how I ended up standing before the emperor, or even the dragon robes draped over his shoulders. At such a juncture, perhaps I should have acted shocked and overjoyed, gasping, "Could you be guardly?" Or perhaps I ought to have prostrated myself in terror, crying, "This servant did not know. You are his majesty. Forgive my great insolence." Yet not a single word escaped my lips. I merely stood there, deathly pale. The emperor stood directly in front of me, holding the silk handkerchief embroidered with scripture, the very one I had used to bribe the head eunuch.
So, your name is Fuyu. Fuyu is a lovely name. Far better than queer.
After those words, the hall plunged into an eerie, dead silence. I saw a young eunuch shooting glances at me, signaling me to kneel. I did not kneel. To the emperor, no matter what name I went by, I was merely a maidservant to toy with at will. A smile still lingered on the emperor's face. He did not take my anger seriously at all, he said.
We did not investigate you at first. In this vast inner palace, running into an amusing maid again and again was quite an enjoyable diversion. Had we not seen the roster of maids sent to the mountain at the Empress Dowager's and asked why an imperial garden sweeper was on it, we might have almost lost you. Fuyu, you truly are fond of magnolias. They are on your shoes and your handkerchief alike.
It was the magnolias again. By the Taiye Lake, he had clearly seen the soles of my shoes, and the head eunuch had presented him my handkerchief. So everything I went through so much trouble to arrange was ruined by a single imperial decree. Unwilling to accept defeat, I clenched my fists and tried to fight back once more. Since the truth has been cleared up, and this servant did not steal any treasure, could your majesty please let the servant leave? It would be bad to miss the departure time. The emperor glared at me. His face slowly darkened.
We have already ordered someone to take you to the mountain to observe a vegetarian fast. But Fuyu, do you know what should be done to someone who trifles with the Son of Heaven? You have only entered the courtyard for 3 months. You wouldn't understand. Wang Fu, tell her.
To answer your majesty, trifling with the emperor is punishable by death.
The sharp voice added,
Maid Fuyu did not know, so she is innocent. May your majesty spare her this time.
I raised my eyes to look at the emperor. He stepped closer to me. His fingers pinched my cheek, rubbing and kneading it.
We can pardon your capital crime of deceiving the sovereign. Fuyu, you will no longer have to endure living on plain vegetarian meals. We grant you the title of First-Class Attendant Yu.
I raised my head and stared at the emperor, staring at the hint of amusement in his eyes, and said decisively, Your majesty possesses so many beauties, plus your darling sweetheart. Why must you keep this servant trapped in the palace?
They can be their noble consorts, and you will be our lady. Neither shall interfere with the other.
This servant refuses. Li Yue was by no means a good-tempered man. After I defied him repeatedly, he grew furious. He waved his arm. The attending eunuchs withdrew one after another. They even tactfully closed the doors. Li Yue grabbed my hand and dragged me toward the inner chamber. He pinned me down onto the imperial bed, undoing the buttons on my chest. Just as his fingers were about to slip under my inner garment, I suddenly pulled out a silver hairpin and lunged it toward his throat. Suddenly, a servant outside announced,
Your Majesty, the noble consort says she lost a jade bracelet. Hearing that you caught a petty thief, she came specifically to take a look.
Hearing of the noble consort's arrival, Li Yue seemed to calm down instantly. He glared at me, snatched the hairpin away.
Fuyu, death for deceiving the sovereign or becoming assistant jade. Choose one. We grant you 3 days.
The door opened and closed again. I faintly heard the noble consort say, This jade bracelet was bestowed upon my promotion to noble consort. It is exceedingly precious. Otherwise, I would not disturb your majesty at this hour. The emperor let out a chuckle, murmured a few words, and then they left together. I collapsed onto the bed, tears silently streaming down my cheeks. Across 2 lifetimes, I had never sought much, In the past, I only wished to be a little maid in peace, waiting until I came of age to leave the palace, marry, and have children. In this life, my only wish was to escape the inner court, to stay away from Liyue. If I were forced to become the emperor's concubine, I would rather end my own life. Yet even if I had to die before dying, I had to make one last effort. The emperor granted me a 3-day deadline. I asked a young eunuch for writing materials, and drafted a secret letter. Once the letter was ready, I told them I wanted to see Baoyue from Zhongqi Palace. If she truly could not come, I begged them to pass a message to Baoyue. I am queer. At the hour of Shu, the vermilion doors of Jiaotai Hall were pushed open for the second time. The noble consort, draped in a red robe, with a peony floral ornament between her brows. She slowly stepped toward me, looking down on me with haughty disdain.
So it was you.
Across 2 lifetimes, I had only met the noble consort a mere 3 times. In the past, the emperor feared she might be humiliated, so he specifically exempted her from kowtowing to the empress and empress dowager. Later, he pushed me forward as a shield, and placed the noble consort under house arrest several times. Thus, the very first time I met her was when I aggressively barged into Zhongqi Palace, framing her by planting poison in her chambers. The second time I met her was right before my death. Holding the young prince, she stood before my bed, and swore to me,
"He will be this consort's only child in this lifetime. Rest in peace."
And now, this was the 3rd time. She looked down at me.
Some time ago, His Majesty suddenly pressed this consort, asking if Zhongqi Palace had a servant named Quier. This consort merely found it ridiculous. Presumably, back then, he was already yearning for you. Is this your trick to bewitch the sovereign? Truly sickening.
I shook my head, staring straight at her through the flickering candlelight. Your ladyship is mistaken. All the concubines in the inner palace belong to His Majesty, a master like him, whose mind is filled entirely with the realm. How could he be hooked by a mere servant? However, your ladyship, your coming here tonight is certainly not to scold this servant, nor is this servant seeking to bring you bad luck. The noble consort raised her chin.
Then what do you want?
These few letters. I beg your ladyship to forward them to the relevant people for this servant. I earnestly hope they can be delivered tonight, lest delays bring unexpected turns. The noble consort lifted her eyes, finally, scrutinizing me carefully.
Oh, why should this consort protect you?
I smiled. Not long ago, Censor Song impeached the Marquis of Xiaoyao during court. Surely, your grace could not be unaware of this. The late emperor benevolently titled your father the Marquis of Xiaoyao, yet his life is anything but carefree. He is currently confined to his estate, drinking away his days to pass the time. If he drunkenly lets slip something he shouldn't, your grace will also be implicated. This servant knows that your grace possesses great means. Deliver these letters for this servant. If it succeeds, they will be too preoccupied to care about him, and the Marquise can enjoy at least 3 years of peace. With her temperament, she deeply treasures her father. In our past life, she pleaded bitterly with the emperor for him multiple times. In this life, she has just suffered a miscarriage, and now comes the crisis of the censor's impeachment. I wagered she was definitely panicking. The noble consort stared at me quietly for a long moment, then pulled the letters from my palm. She tore them open, skimmed through, and tucked them back in.
Fine.
I have done everything in my power. Success or failure now rests with fate. On the 3rd day, the emperor came to interrogate me. Anger flared between his brows, and he slammed several letters down before me.
Chen Fuyu, do you know what crime you have committed? Because of these few letters of yours, the imperial court has been thrown into utter chaos. Speak, whose spy are you? How did you manage to uncover all of this?
I stared calmly at the emperor. He had always been composed and self-assured. This was the first time he had ever been so furious. This servant is by no means a spy. It was merely a grand dream. In the dream, Consort Jing's mother engaged in usury. Consort Chen's father embezzled 1,000,000 taels of silver in Zhangyan. Imperial concubine Hui's brother abducted common women. And first-class attendant Qi's uncle seized 10,000 acres of fertile land. This servant merely passed Consort Jing's secrets to Imperial concubine Hui, and Consort Chen's secrets to Consort Jing, and gave Consort Hui's dirt to noble Lady Qi. These consorts already held grudges against each other. Once they seized damaging evidence, they immediately sent letters to their clans, and the court truly began turning on itself. Who holds a grudge against whom in the inner palace, and who holds what leverage over others? No spy could ever uncover such things. The emperor pondered for a long time. He stepped forward, gripped my chin, and stared into my eyes.
And what about us?
Those past memories flooded my mind, and my vision slowly blurred. Your Majesty will certainly be a good emperor. You will crack down on usury, using Consort Jing's maternal clan to set an example. You will thoroughly investigate embezzlement, and have Consort Chen's father flayed and stuffed with straw. You will reform the laws and survey the farmlands. Yet you are by no means a good husband. From then on, Consort Jing turned to vegetarianism and prayer, and Consort Chen hanged herself. I deliberately avoided mentioning myself, yet the emperor still keenly caught the underlying truth.
Fuyu, a mere maid sweeping the imperial garden, could not possibly know all this. In that dream, who were you to us?
I was poisoned by them and miscarried 6 times. Yet Liyue. By my bedside, you held my hand and said their families were still useful, and that the court must never fall into chaos. The emperor raised his voice.
Is this why you fabricated a false reputation to become a nun? Fuyu, are you trying to use the mistakes of the dream's emperor to shun the present us who knows nothing at all? This is utterly unfair to us.
But I no longer dared to gamble. I yelled out, breathing heavily, large tears rolling down my face. I died when I was 23 years old, pregnant 7 times. My body had long been ruined. The imperial physician said no medicine could save me. Liyue, I only have 1 life. I have already died for you once. You promised you'd let me go. You promised. A sudden realization struck me. Kneeling on the ground, I held out the jade pendant he had placed in my hand. Your Majesty said with this, I could ask one favor of you. This servant has not the fortune to bear your Majesty's grace. I beg your Majesty to spare this servant. Liyue's gaze darkened.
And what if we refuse? We rule this entire empire, yet we cannot even have 1 woman.
I said, Your Majesty can certainly lock this servant away, imprison this body, and make this servant unable to live, yet unable to die. But as long as this servant draws breath and has a day to deliver secret messages, crises like this will keep erupting. And your Majesty's court and inner palace will never know peace. Is that truly what your Majesty wishes to see? Liyue understood better than anyone that if the ministers fought to the bitter end, the people's livelihood and the nation's fate would be sacrificed to factional strife. After a long silence, just as I became certain the emperor would give no answer, he asked me,
Where do you intend to run?
At that moment, I seemed to hear the Fuyu of both my past and present lives speaking in unison. I want to return to Taikang. It is my hometown, a water town crisscrossed by rivers, where painted boats shuttle back and forth, scattered like stars. In the morning one can hear the gentle singing of embroiderers. On hot days, one can wade into the water to catch fish and gather river snails. The old granny at the street corner weaves jasmine bracelets, and naughty children play cat's cradle. I beg your Majesty to bury me there. I beg your Majesty to permit this servant to return to my village. The emperor questioned me one last time.
There is no fine food or luxury there, nor are there magnificent jade palaces. Are you certain you want to return home?
He said in a deep voice.
Granted.
I kowtowed to the ground. This servant thanks your Majesty for your grace. Long live the emperor. May you live for 10,000 years. He turned and walked away, dropping the jade pendant into the palm of my hand. Your Majesty, in this life and this world, may we never meet again. I returned home under the title of County Mistress Rangjia, the Empress Dowager's foster daughter. Before leaving the palace, I wrote down the droughts, floods, and court power struggles from my past life, along with the emperor's strategies back then, into a book, and asked a servant to deliver it to him. Returning the favor, he bestowed upon me a noble title and fertile land. Now returning to my hometown in glory, I purchased hundreds of acres of mulberry fields, relying on the advantage of my rebirth and recalling the years when I was noble consort, and all the most sought-after silks were sent to my quarters. I created a flurry of brand new patterns. Having made a name for myself, I opened a weaving workshop and hired embroideresses. Time flew by, in the blink of an eye. 5 years passed just like that. One day, I overheard many people chatting about the nation's fortunes and the current emperor. Upon asking carefully, I learned that the court, in order to increase tax revenue, advocated replacing rice paddies with mulberry trees in Jiangnan. The emperor hadn't given his approval, nor had he rejected the proposal. Instead, he opened the floor to widespread discussion, inviting the common folk to debate it together. Right now, farmers planted grain merely to fill their bellies, whereas planting mulberries, raising silkworms, and reeling silk could earn far more silver. Because of this, even the old men sipping tea in the tea house were debating it. I listened with amusement, when suddenly, I thought of my hundreds of acres of paddy and mulberry fields, and remembered many years ago, the night before I escaped, when head eunuch Fu from the emperor's side came to see me. He relayed a question on his master's behalf.
Maid Fuyu, once you leave, you can never return to the palace. Do you truly have no regrets? This old servant sees that his Majesty holds some tenderness for you. If you stay...
I cut him off. No regrets. I could indeed rely on a man's favor and pity to enjoy good times for a moment, yet to enjoy good times for a lifetime, it must depend entirely on myself.